You won't remember most of your life. I didn't believe that at first until recently, when I spent a couple days backing up my footage to an external hard drive. As I reviewed the footage from years ago, I realized just how lucky I was to begin documenting my life when I did. If I didn't accidentally stumble upon a system for remembering, so many precious memories would have become lost to time. How it works is largely based on our current understanding of memory, and it's flexible enough to be adapted to anyone's needs. So let's begin by understanding what our memory is and its limitations. Think of this circle as your working memory, a temporary store for the information you use to think, reason, and solve problems. At any given moment, it pulls chunks of information from your long-term memory to help you solve daily problems. The more you recall those memories, the stronger the connection between the two become. For example, a common study technique that is used by students for exams is called spaced repetition. It is when a student reviews information at increasing time intervals to mitigate the law of forgetting. To simply put it, the neurons that fire together wire together. However, the opposite is true as well. Memories that haven't been recalled for a very long time have their connections weakened and eventually disconnected through a process known as synaptic pruning. Eventually, you'll lose the ability to recall that memory entirely. I find it so sad that so much of our lives are lost to this process, and I think it's why people take more photos than ever. But you might have experienced something similar, where you have so many photos on your phone, you hardly, if ever, look at them. Instead, you just keep upgrading your phone storage, believing, hoping that one day this problem will just sort itself out. This is the great paradox of digital photography, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed by it. So here's the solution that I use to fix this problem. First and foremost, you gotta get everything off your phone and select what you want to keep based on the feelings you experience when viewing them and the moment they encapsulate. The app that I use to assist this process is called Narrative Select, and my favorite part of this tool is that it's completely free and just works. After going through and deleting anything that doesn't spark any memories, you want to sort the clips by its year, month, and date. For most people, that'll probably be enough detail for them to find it on a later date, but I like to take it one step further and tag everyone who's a part of the photo or video. This can be a very tedious process, but if you have a lot of footage like I do, doing this will help find the exact clip you want much quicker. I'll admit, I love talking about equipment and all the nitty-gritty details about specs, dynamic range, blah 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 blah, but for most people, the gear that I typically shoot on is most likely going to be overkill. With phone cameras getting so good these days, you can hardly tell the difference between that of an iPhone and a dedicated mirrorless camera. Despite knowing that, I still love shooting on a dedicated camera. It's bigger, it's heavier, it's less convenient, and it's more restrictive than a phone. But its distraction-free simplicity is why it's my tool of choice over and over again. When I'm using a camera to record, I am fully locked in and focused on everything that's happening in frame. The sound, the details, the atmosphere all become intertwined with the visuals, as the Western world just kind of melts away. By focusing on this specific moment, I give my mind a node to latch other details onto. Later, I'll be able to use this access point to recall other memories that are linked to it. Fundamentally speaking, we remember most naturally by drawing on connections. Regardless of what device you choose to use, it's important that you're intentional with how you record, because once you're done documenting, you should put the camera away. See, when you take a photo, your visual memory becomes heightened at the expense of all your other senses, which is unfortunate because our sense of smell, touch, and taste are actually more strongly tied to memory than our sight. So ironically, if you want to recall a place more vividly, be completely zoned in when capturing the moment, and then let your other senses do the work after. If you've been intentional when recording and present after, then most of your work is actually already done. However, if you want to make those memories truly unforgettable, then you need to engage with them on a deeper level. Personally, I do this by producing a piece of media or print that I can view later. Regardless if it's photo or video, the program that I use to process this footage is DaVinci Resolve. It's not the best or the easiest to use for photos, but it's the cheapest option available, and I'm able to get some pretty good results with it. If you want to get the results that I have shown you, knowing how to get the best from your camera really does help. I'll be explaining using photo terms since that's what most people are going to be familiar with, but just so you know, everything is pretty much the same for video as well. When you take a photo with a camera, you generally have two main options for storing the image: RAW or JPEG or both. Raw photos are these large uncompressed files that capture all the data straight from the sensor, preserving a ton of information and dynamic range, much of which is redundant and imperceivable to the human eye. But it gives you maximum control and flexibility to reshape the image later on. JPEG, on the other hand, is this compressed, lossy format that throws much of that extra data away. So the image isn't nearly as flexible anymore. If you try editing a JPEG, you'll encounter issues like banding, artifacting, and noise much sooner. So it's kind of similar to lining a sketch. You want to get every detail just right before you begin putting ink to paper, because once you begin, there's little room for adjustment afterwards. This is why using a dedicated mirrorless camera doesn't automatically make your photos look better. If you only shoot in JPEG, the camera manufacturer's settings dictate how those images look, which is often true to life, somewhat flat, kind of dull, and mostly boring. By using a dedicated camera, the real advantage comes from shooting in RAW, which doesn't look that good straight out of camera, but gives you the ability to edit each photo with as much flexibility as you need. iPhones also have this feature that can be turned on in settings, but those files aren't compatible with DaVinci Resolve, so you'll have to get a dedicated photo editing software like Lightroom or Capture One. When it comes to editing, there are generally two types of people: those with a consistent workflow that matches their creative intent, and those who just wing it until they reach something half decent. I've always fallen into the latter category, struggling to get consistently good results. What I was missing was a filter that could apply all my edits under. Until recently, when Dehancer reached out offering a solution to that problem in exchange for a review and a comparison. They offer over 60 accurate film emulations, which include some of my favorite film stocks from Kodak like Portra 400, Kodak Gold 200, and Vision 3 2050D. For the price, they produce quite nice results, but are a little finicky to get looking great. I find the results straight out of box a little strong and need to be dialed back to like a 1 to look good. For reference, what I've been using for years now is a similar plugin called Filmbox from Video Village. Personally, I believe the results from Filmbox using the default settings is nicer, and it also has less options to choose from in the menu, which makes it easier to use. But I also paid twice the price for it, and I'm not sure if I see twice the price in difference. So it could just be copium. I found I achieved the best results out of Dehancer when I split the grain and the color into two separate nodes and control them individually. If you like the results that you're seeing, there is a 10% discount on all Dehancer products in the description box down below. Keep in mind, regardless of what workflow you use, none of it matters if the final edit doesn't support the mood or the story you're trying to tell. After all, the final product you've spent so long laboring over is going to be viewed by people. Whether that be on a wall or online, be sure that you're happy with the message that you're sending. Once it's in the public, it's out of your hands. I know that might seem daunting at first, but creating media to share has been so rewarding and personally fulfilling. I love seeing the reaction on people's faces when a piece of my work reminds them of a shared moment and subsequent conversation that ensues because of it. So even if the moment feels mundane, try documenting your life intentionally, because you never know when those boring, everyday scenarios may become timeless and something to look back on in the future.